we're now going to look at connectivity, and the thing about connectivity is people like James, a person from Viasat, will always go, it's not confused. People will go, it's very confusing, and then he'll go, it's not rocket science. But actually, a lot of it is to do with rocket science. And we've also delighted to have Michael, who's here from MIT. Michael's a visiting fellow at MIT, and to be honest, I've spent quite a lot of time with Michael, and we've deliberately asked him to tone it down for this crowd and not to get too complicated.
Thanks. Always manage expectations down. Thank
we
you.
need you to not get too complicated. So I'm going to hand over to James and Michael.
All right, Al, I think we'll stand up to do this because I know some of you just had ice cream and I don't want you to fall asleep. You know, some of you who did not already go to take your nap before the Dealmakers dinner tonight. So yes, I'm James Person with Viasat, and here with research fellow Michael Schrage from MIT. And yes, we're going to talk a little about connectivity, but more specifically, as you see here, rethinking in-flight connectivity and what it really takes to have a great quality of experience. So I'm going to open with a question. Obviously, this is my cell phone. When was the last time any of you did a speed test on your cell phone? And my guess is, not going on a limb here, that it's pretty infrequent. And that's because once all the networks got to 4G or 5G, cell phones can pretty much do whatever you need them to do. And you probably only do a speed test if it's not doing what you need to do. So our thesis is sort of two-pronged, and we'll talk about this in the next 15 minutes or so. One is that to talk about quality of experience for in-flight connectivity, we definitely need to move beyond just speed tests. Speed is important, but it's only one part of what really makes the great quality of experience. And perhaps even more importantly, the experience we have on our cell phones today is not enough for what we should be delivering for connectivity, for the expectations that people who fly privately really have. And I know that's a passion of Michael, and he'll be talking about this as well. All right, so let's dive into it. I already mentioned that speed is one important factor. I've left it on the list that you see here. But think about what really helps make yours or your customers' experience work well when they're flying privately, or even maybe you're using one of our systems on the airlines, because we're the fast and free on Deltas from Viasat as well. But to give you that great experience, it needs to be reliable. So it needs to work for you and for the aircraft every time you get on. It's got to be like ACJ talking about their 99.9% reliability. If we're not delivering that, we're letting your customers down. The route coverage. This is somewhat underlooked because while most aviation flights happen in North America, and that's easy to cover, what about those 35% of business aviation flights that happen outside? Does the network have coverage? Does it have legal landing rights and overflight rights in the countries where your aircraft are flying? People don't forget about it in this room, but customer support is critical. And we've heard through all the discussions we've talked about today how important that human touch is. So it can't be an email only if this person expects when they pick up the phone to ask a question about their connectivity, there better be someone on the other end of the line to answer that phone. So customer support really impacts the quality of experience. Of course, value is important. On the Viasat side, we've had unlimited plans below $10,000 for a long time, but people expect that if they're paying $10,000 a month for connectivity, they better be getting all the other things we're talking about. In addition to that reliability, it needs to be consistent, right? It's not great to say, well, when you're over the islands or when you're over the ocean, you might see a great performance, but if you're flying that route from Morristown down to Florida, where every other business jet is flying, it drops down to nearly nothing. You can't do a Zoom call. That is not a great experience either. So these are all the things I know you think about subconsciously, but we're bringing them to the forefront so that we can deliver them to your customers.
So Viasat and James were kind enough to invite me as somebody who does research on KPIs, key performance indicators, and KPAIs, the idea that you can actually infuse metrics with intelligence to do a research survey of what the future of the connected customer experience is. And if you're genuinely interested, because frankly, the notion that all we're going to do is calls or texts or Zooms, that's not good enough. If you're not doing Claude or ChatGPT stuff, if your children aren't able to do Twitch on a flight, something is wrong. You need to fundamentally rethink the use cases that you want in flight. And the idea, just to echo what James just was saying earlier, the idea that you have just as good an experience in flight as you do on the ground, frankly, that's a pretty low expectation. And for all the discussion about service and safety, et cetera, you probably want an SLA for connectivity, the connected customer experience, every bit as good as the quality of on-time delivery and maintenance for the plane. So I did do this report. There's a copy of it that you can have. If you're genuinely interested in the subject, it's a very good report. It's very informative, he says immodestly. And if you're not that interested in it, it's an excellent sleeping aid if the flight is too long on the way back. But the fundamental insights, the fundamental takeaways I want to share with you is that the notion of peak megabits per second, rubbish. That's not, there's a correlation, but that does not cause or translate into real measurable performance, as James just enumerated. And key moments, connectivity through a meeting, having the dialogue with your LLM that delivers the insight that you need for the meeting that you're going to. Speed alone, speed is a decent proxy metric, but it does not inherently or necessarily translate into better customer experience. If we can go to the next slide. One of the most important things I want you to come away with is the way you measure things changes the way you perceive things. It wasn't by accident that you were asked to see, when was the last time you did a speed check on your phone? It's irrelevant to you. And it's going to be irrelevant for the in-flight experience in the future. Horsepower, James Watt, steam engine, horsepower was not a scientific metric. It was a marketing metric, but it changed during the Industrial Revolution and the rise of the steam engine. It changed the notion of what power meant. Willis Carrier, psychrometry, air conditioning. It changed the notion of what comfort meant. Changing your metrics changes your perception of value. Everybody in this room is involved in the marketing, sale, and delivery of value. You better be picking the right metrics for that. That same kind of opportunity exists for connectivity today. In the next slide, this is what we're transitioning from. The classic legacy metric, as detailed excruciatingly well in the report, is quality of service. Speed, et cetera, how reliable is the speed? How does quality of service translate into quality of experience? My view is we're just at the beginning of the metrics, designing and deploying the metrics that matter in intelligent environments, in flight and on the ground, as to what quality experience means and what people should be entitled to and expect for the prices that they pay. And I want to turn it back over to James because Viasat is pioneering a new metric that is beginning to address this gap and this opportunity.
Well said, Michael. Thank you. I wouldn't expect anything less from somebody at my alma mater, so thank you very much. But
MIT doesn't suck, you know?
if I can use a crawl, walk, run analogy here, I would say that the speed test alone is the crawl.
Yeah. That's ironic, isn't it?
Yes.
Speed is crawl.
And when you work up, and we've heard some people talk about quality of service, and that's necessary, but not sufficient, because if you look at quality of service, as it says here, we're measuring things like the speed and the latency and jitter and other technical terms, which are very important for a shared network, a satellite network like we operate, congestion, packet loss, all those other things. But it gives a little bit of better insight into what Michael's talking about with an SLA, a service level agreement. But as it points out here, we're looking at just the network. We're not looking at what's happening with that end user, with that L1 sitting on the aircraft, and what's really happening is he's trying to do his board call, or his child or grandchild are trying to play a game. So what we're talking about is moving from just quality of service to a full quality of experience. And it takes a little to wrap your head around this because there's a lot of elements in it, but as it says here, it's going to ask questions. Were you able to do what you needed to do?
As important as network design is, as important as network innovation is, user experience is more important. That's the crawl, walk, that's where running and sprinting.
Right. Yep.
And that's a conceptual and technical gap, and full marks to Viasat for, despite the fact that it is, or because of the fact it's a world-class engineering organization, it is realizing that people, users and customers and clients are not going to get the full value of what the network provides. In this, there's just as much attention and rigor paid on UX as network design.
And because we all love acronyms, we're introducing a new one. It's called IQE, that's in-flight quality of experience. And the takeaway that I'll come back to is, as we introduce this, and for whatever connectivity solution you choose for your aircraft, you should be demanding an SLA that lives up to this. Because if someone's just offering a peak speed test that they can do certain time of the day over the ocean, that's not going to deliver the experience that your customers, your passengers demand.
I could put a spin on the question that Jim asked initially. How many of your clients would be thrilled for a plane that was perfectly clean, excellent catered meal, right on time, met at the airport, and there was too much jitter on the calls and the internet? I think, I don't mean to be negative here, even what Alistair said here, but the customer service panel, it's like connectivity is taken for granted. Assume connectivity. You're crazy if you do that. You're absolutely crazy if you do that. You should never assume these sorts of things. You have to design it in. You have to measure it, and you have to really use those measurements as an opportunity to improve the quality and reliability of customer experience and the value that people get from that experience.
Right, and we're able to measure that because today, just on business aviation side, we have more than 2,000 business jets flying with Viasat's high-capacity global network. So we can leverage machine learning, leverage predictive analytics to do incredible things, like to know, okay, this is a Monday morning. I mentioned Teterboro down to Florida. We know how many flights are going to be in that corridor. Morristown or Teterboro. We know. We can look up what the weather is. We can incorporate that. We can look at all these things that are going to impact the customer experience. And with our satellites, the way they're designed, they're flexible. We can put extra capacity instantaneously there to serve the needs of your client. So in the background, it's all happening to make that customer experience great.
Unless your network is working, your clients, your plane, your pilots can't get the benefits of the AI investments that so many organizations are making.
So that's what will go on behind the scenes, but what the customer will see, they, and everybody will be able to download an app, whether it's iOS or Android. It'll also be available through our partners. We sell a lot of our services through value-added resellers like Collins and Honeywell and GoGo. There will be an intuitive quality of experience score that may be out of a 1 to 5, right? And it will match up with what that experience was on that flight for connectivity. And it gives an opportunity for us to put our money where our mouth is through our service VARs. As you can imagine, that if they didn't have a good experience, we'll be held accountable for that. So it's a great way to make sure that we deliver on our promises. As you see here, it's coming. It's going to be available next year. And as I mentioned, it'll be integrated into all these tools. Did I cover everything on this?
I think so. I think this is one of the most important changes that's going, because of things like AI, the power and importance of connectivity is going to go up by not 2 or 3 times, but 10x. And you need an in-flight, you need to provide and provision an in-flight experience that has people saying, you know, I would rather do that meeting or rather do my design work. I'd rather do my due diligence in flight than on the ground because I have a much better experience in flight.
Right, so the takeaway is we really need to be demanding more from our connectivity on aviation. And one way to do that, to hold us accountable, is to demand an SLA from your provider. Make sure that they're living up to what they say they can do. And in terms of the thanking, all right, we're going to thank you with two gifts. Michael already mentioned one, and Al mentioned as well. So you all have a hard copy of this report. If you're not into...
Think of it as a gift. Please.
It's a gift. If you're not into the full report, page 5 has a one-page overview that may or may not have been written by AI. I don't know.
It was not written by AI.
If you prefer electronic copies, I've got these cute little QR codes at our stand, or I have one that you can download it on your device. That's one of the 2 gifts. The second gift happens later tonight because at 10:24, a window opens up for about 35 minutes where the Viasat 3 Flight 2 satellite will launch from Cape Canaveral. And for those of you at the after party tonight, around 10:20, set an alarm now on your phone in case you want to walk outside and see the largest capacity satellite in the world go up from Cape Canaveral on an Atlas V rocket.
Take that, Elon Musk.
It's a 1,000 gigabit per second satellite, terabit satellite that's extremely flexible, that puts capacity exactly where it's needed so that we can deliver those SLAs for your passengers and continue to deliver outstanding service from Viasat and our partners. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much.
You've got a question. You can't go.
Oh, we have a question. All right.
By the way, you can't tell us that speed's irrelevant, then tell us it's 1,000 gigabytes a second satellite.
I was telling you capacity. That's capacity. That's not. Speed is not
irrelevant.
Speed is not irrelevant.
It just shouldn't be the dominant.
Right.
Okay, you have one question.
Okay.
By the way, Michael also is if you, as well as reading his report, you should also look into his AI APIs and how it's fascinating. We discussed it at MBAA.
If you really have trouble sleeping, yes.
How do you measure IQE when the client indicates they want a better service? There still needs to be a gauge of how the system works.
You want to start with that?
I don't know what the benchmark is going to be. I'll tell you the one pushback I have on the IQE design that I would take very seriously, particularly in the SLA issue. What are the use cases? What are the specific use cases? Not just the requirements. How does the IQE correlate and relate to the meeting, the email, the Slack, the video game? That's what you're looking for. If I'm negotiating an SLA, I don't focus as much on the technical requirements as the use cases we want and expect the network to reliably support.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to root cause. All the great networks, ours included, are already uncapped. They already deliver more than enough speed for everything someone needs to do on an aircraft. But it's getting to what caused the problem. Is it that the principal's software on his iPhone is out of date? Is it that the router on board the aircraft needs to be reset to work properly? And with IQE and predictive analytics, there are things we can tell on the network that will point us to that, to say, all right, principal says, I need a better service. We can figure out what
By the way, which in turn, and this is the real revolution that's occurring, that becomes data. Yes, predictive analytics is old-fashioned. That becomes data that's used to what? Train
the system,
the network to become smarter and anticipatory. Data is used to train the models that make the network smarter.
Perfect.
I think we just all feel smarter for sitting through this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.